Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Lambert, and on this channel, we talk Kanye West, and that's what's going to be happening today. We're going to do a Kanye News rundown, going through some of the latest stories. I'd say latest and greatest, but eh. I don't know if there's anything too spectacular, but there are some interesting things, one of which is this. So apparently, the life of Pablo's disappeared, and nobody really knows why. My take was perhaps the Mandela effect, where collectively we as a society think something existed, and then it turns out it never did. For example, Sinbad was never in a movie where he was a genie, even though most of us remember a movie. At least most of us that grew up in the 90s remember a movie where Sinbad was a genie. Weird, I know. But Life of Pablo has vanished from Apple Music. And you can see right here, the albums are going in order. Kids See Ghosts, Yay, Yeezus, Watch the Throne, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. There's just no Life of Pablo. It is still on Spotify, Deezer, I do believe, at least, and Tidal. It's just Apple Music where it's vanished. Part of this, the only legitimate rumor that I've seen so far that's made some sense to me, some people have suggested it was a glitch. Some people have suggested maybe the information got shuffled around so it's not showing up properly. But there was also Designer tried releasing some, you remember him, right? He tried releasing some music on SoundCloud the other day that was just like fuck good music, I think it was called. Very blatant. He has not prospered under Kanye's label. And, after Timmy Turner dropped, it was still, I thought it was a pretty hype song. Just nothing happened. And Designer seemed kind of upset for a while. I mean, as huge of a Kanye fan as I am, good music seems to have had a consistent issue for the last decade of getting out music by artists, right? We still haven't, like, Kid Cudi left because his music wasn't coming out at a rate that he was happy with. Pusha has only released, like 1.5 albums while on good. Sci-Hi's never released an album. Didn't Big Sean have to leave as well? Teyana had one album with good in the 8 years she's been with the label. It's strange. I feel like all the artists are probably getting paid in some way, working in some way. I mean, they're still clearly in Kanye's circle for the most part, maybe not Designer, but it's strange, I guess, what goes on there because it's just not the amount of music that I would expect. So Designer is on the song Father Stretch My Hands Part 2, and if somehow, some way he was able to pull some legal shenanigans regarding the rights that he provided for the track, maybe that's why the album's gone, but that's purely conjecture. I have nothing to back that up. Just a theory. I mean, it could be back when I refresh this page. Let's try refreshing this page. And it is not back. No. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. When there's more information, I'll let you know. What else do we have here? So in the upcoming episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, they do a little bit of regaling us with Kim and Kanye's backstory. So they talk about when they fell in love, how they met, and Kanye says, every time I was around her, I saw her, it was magnetic attraction to this force of energy. He described her as good, pure, happy, loving, courageous, and strong. That man is a charmer. But as solid as the power couple's relationship it is now, its origin story was not free of challenges. During her own solo sit-down with THS camera, I don't know what that means, the Hollywood Scoop? True Hollywood Story. That's what it, True Hollywood Story. Kim recalls the flack her husband received when the two officially started dating back in 2012. I mean, everyone would tell him, you can't be with her. She's a reality star. She's going to sink your career. And he was just like, but I love her. I don't care. And it's kind of funny. Some of you may know that Kanye was, I think it was Crocodile Boots was the show was supposed to be called. Kanye was going to host a sketch or produce, right? A sketch comedy show that was Saturday Night Live, but with puppets. and all of the guest stars were going to be interacting with the puppets. And they did a pilot episode of it, which got good reviews for the most part. And Kanye was supposed to be the special guest for the inaugural episode, right? But Kanye demanded they have a second special guest, and this is like 2006, 2007, that was Kim Kardashian. And they had met a couple times at that point, but hadn't really gotten to have like the full interaction, right? Where they're just hanging out, spending time. But Kanye, even at that point, knew that he wanted that. So they were telling him, like, no, you're the guest. You know, we can get her to be the next guest, but you're the guest for this episode. And he was just like, no, get Kim here. So they did a bunch of skits together and got to spend the day together. And that was really when things kind of kicked off a little more serious between them. I mean, it would be years before they started dating, but that's when they were on each other's radar. And famously, the song Lost in the World, the main Kanye verse, like, you're my heaven, you're my hell, you're my now, you're my forever, you're my freedom, you're my jail. That was a poem he sent to Kim Kardashian in an email that he then took from the email and put into the song. So he clearly had some feelings for it and wasn't afraid to express it long before. So if you're curious about more of their backstory, you're going to want to check out this True Hollywood Story, or as the kids call it, THS. Kids don't call it that. Nobody calls it that. Ugh. Moving on. Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, Laverne Cox, Christy Turlington to help FGI celebrate United Stars. So this is more just, you know, if you're into all things Kanye, it looks like Kanye and Kim are going to be, handing an award to Rick Owens at the gala on October 24th. I don't know if it's going to be televised, if there's going to be a speech at all, but Owens has been a furniture maker, I do believe. But designer overall. He's an artist. But Kanye started going to a lot of his shows out in Los Angeles, and the two became friends. So this has been actually a few years in the making. If you follow kind of Kanye's foray into the larger arts world, the relationship with Rick Owens has developed over time. So it's kind of cool. He's going to be able to give Owens an award. This one just pissed me off. Joshua. Kanye West reiterates that Republican Party freed the slaves at Salt Lake City Sunday service. So there's some context to this that, like, Josh just doesn't get into at all. Like, you look at how he frames it, right? On Saturday, the 42-year-old rapper appeared in Salt Lake City for another installment of his Sunday service. That's true. Shortly after taking the stage, Ye dived into a political rant about the backlash over his pro-Trump comments and reminded the audience it was a Republican president who abolished slavery in the United States. As with most presentations of what goes on with Kanye, context always makes it play out a little bit better. Kanye was in the middle of a 10-minute prayer, rant, speech, whatever you want to call it, but it was, for him, a prayer where he was talking about religion and faith. And he touched on, like, a lot of topics regarding faith and God and Jesus. And this was something that he built to in the midst of that, rather than something that he just came out and said. It was 45 seconds of a 10 minutes speech. So Kanye says, Abraham Lincoln was the Whig Party, which is true. That's the Republican Party that freed the slaves, which is also true. One of the points that Kanye, who's made this point a couple times, doesn't mention is that in the time between the Civil War and today, the parties have kind of switched ideologies, where the Democrats in the wake of the Civil War were conservatives, and Republicans before the Civil War and after were the progressives. But over the course of the 20th century, things just started shifting and getting more muddled until about the time of the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s. And that's where you first started seeing more of the floodgates opening, with more conservatives going Republican and more of the progressives going Democrat. There's some information on it. There's a really good article from The Guardian about it. And there's actually an article on this website, Arrow something, that makes the case that there's a that party switching is a myth, but it's mostly just a party switching myth that Republicans were the ones that were are now the party of like slave owners, which that part's not true. Like nobody's the party of owners at this point in time, which is what they're saying. But they admit that the values of the parties have switched over time. So yeah, that's something Kanye never really gets into, but I hopefully one day does. But he goes on to say, I ain't never make a decision based only on my color. And this was, as Josh notes, he refused to oppose Trump simply because he was black. That's a form of slavery, mental slavery. I ain't drink from the white person fountain. I ain't playing with them. All these mind controllers, the media, all of these mind controllers. I find that wherever Christ is, where I got my mind, we find that love of Christ is where I've got my mind back. And that's really Kanye's ultimate point, and has been most of his points when talking about Trump and talking about Democrats and Republicans, isn't the politics and the policies, because Kanye, when he's expressed politics and policies, have all been very progressive, especially his tweets on October 30th, when he said that he realized he had been used as a political tool, probably referring to Candace Owens, as it was right after she tried to tie him together with her Blexit event, which was the Black Exodus from the Democratic Party playing on Brexit from the UK. Kanye wasn't having any of that, but he said very progressive statements on Twitter about where his politics were, and he's never agreed with Trump's politics. Anyway, monolithic thought. That's the point that he keeps coming back to. It's just society tells you have to do certain things, and groups within that society also tell you have to do certain things to be part of that group. Like Kanye is a black man, and if he votes Democrat or votes Republican, it doesn't change that he is a black man. So when people tell him because you're black, you have to vote Democrat, that to him is this idea of mental slavery, like mind control, that you're telling me I have to do something because I'm this color. Like I'm a person and I can do whatever I want because of that. And the example I typically go to for this, which I'm sure you've heard me talk about before, is if you live in New York City or born in New York City, and somebody tried to tell you you're not a real New Yorker unless you're a fan of the Yankees. I mean, New York City's a big place and not everybody likes baseball. Like, you could be a fan of the Mets. You could grow up and be a fan of the Red Sox and still be a New Yorker, even though that's almost sacrilegious because of the rivalry between Boston and New York in baseball. Still, it doesn't make you any less of a New Yorker. You are what you are. So I get where he's coming from with that. But at the same time, there's all kinds of debates about, is this the time or the place to take that stance given the current climate, yada, yada, yada. I just have a problem with how Josh is kind of framing it as this is support for Trump, when it's not really that. It's mostly just him saying, you can't tell me not to just because I'm black. So he says Ye made similar statements via Twitter last year, and then gets into Kanye also urged listeners to take caution when it came to social media, as it was designed to make you think slower. It's an interesting take considering his family's large social media presence. I mean, you can still have a take on it. If you're on it there's healthy ways and unhealthy ways, there's pros and cons. Yeah. Do not read comments on the internet, he said. These people don't know you like that. Social media is designed to make you think slower. They want you to slow down and control you. And the context of that Josh doesn't really get into is that Kanye talks about how he thinks like at this rapid rate. So when he tweets 100 images or 100 fragments, he's really going stream of consciousness. And how people respond to that is to tell him he's crazy or he's absurd, or to tell him to calm down, or that this isn't appropriate. And that's what he's really responding to here, is that they want you to think slower. They want you to think in this limited, linear way rather than how I think and not be me. That's mostly what he's responding to, rather than just like social media is bad, don't do it. And then, yeah, people say a bunch of bullshit online. So you shouldn't really take all the comments seriously, because there's always going to be people that say something negative to you. He also took some time to address criminal justice reform, suggesting people are too preoccupied with trivial matters to realize just how broken the system really is. I don't think that's a fair. He just said he talked about how people argue about music and sports, and then said there's 1 in 3 African Americans in jail in this country, not county. It's not that people don't realize how broken the system really is. It's more that people are spending their time in ways that are more superficial than meaningful, and maybe we should focus on the meaningful rather than the superficial. If we cared as much about 1 in 3 African Americans in jail as we did sports or music, what would society look like? So I think this just goes to show how what Kanye says can be framed to look absurd or fine. Like, I like to think that when I present it, it comes off. What's my hair doing? What's my. Ugh. Oh, God. It's not better. When I present it, it sounds better, right? Like, why should we focus on these petty things when there's meaningful things? And if we focus on the meaningful things, great stuff could happen. Where how this article is written, it just makes it seem like people are too stupid. So, and that's Kanye's point. That's a 6-minute rant on a complex article. So this is another thing, and some people have been asking us about this. Yandhi album leaks on Spotify and Tidal. This has happened several times now. There have been a few leaks that have come out, disappeared, vanished. This one's called Kanye Drop Your Albums and has a bunch of fake titles for songs, but they're actually the Yandhi leaks from before. So it seems to be, at this point, an accessible Yandhi leak, and I've kind of stayed away from showing leaks and doing things, but because it's in the news, it's not really a secret, though I still think that Hypebeast is a little, and others are maybe a little irresponsible for reporting on this, as it's still music that we don't know what Kanye is going to do with it. Seems a little irresponsible to me, but if you want to go listen, and this is the other annoying part, the ringtones are clearly like not legitimate. They're by a company, Enzo, like Limited or whatever, on Apple Music. So iTunes aren't real, but all these articles and places keep making it sound like Yandhi did release his ringtones, so go and get it. It didn't. Some random person just uploaded them from the leaks, and now all of these places are making that person money by talking about it. It's so weird. It just, again and again, smacks of such like lack of research and making somebody else money by presenting it falsely. And then there's no, I could complain about that all day. So there's this interview here at GQ. Kenny G explains how he made it onto Kanye West's new album, with Max throwing in the joke is probably, as we don't know what's happening with Jesus is King. It's a pretty... Kenny G has some pretty good answers. The questions get a little funny. I love the fact that you can see how in-depth Kenny G is with some of this. What was the one question? So it was Valentine's Day, right, when Kanye had Kenny G appear. I can't believe it was just Valentine's Day this year. I thought it was years ago. It just feels like such a long time ago. But the room was full of roses, and Kenny's playing the sax, and that's how Kim wakes up. But after that, they hopped to the studio, and that's when Kenny started working on what I assume is Use This Gospel from Jesus is King, which starts with the Kenny G sax. So Kanye was working on it, it would seem, all the way back in February, even though we had no idea that it existed at that point. But you see that gets asked the question, so being that it was Valentine's Day, when you guys did go into the studio, when you started collaborating, were you kind of in a romantic mindset? What? Not at all. No, not at that point. Yeah. And then I like this too. It just kind of ends, and Kenny's like, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't ask me what I was wearing in the studio. This is GQ, you know, which is kind of just funny because GQ is a fashion magazine, so not to be asked about fashion at all. I like that Kenny was kind of on point about that and was like, yo, I was looking fly. Like, look at this man. He's wearing a nice ass suit. Ask him about his suit. So that's cool. I think I should be interviewing Kenny in November. So hopefully we have Jesus is King at that point and can ask him some more questions about the song and reaction to the song. But I'm definitely excited to interview him. I've been in touch with the team. Then we got this. Oh, God, this video is going to get so long. I'm so sorry. We have just. Oh, no. I skipped the other thing. That's good. I saved you guys a rant. So if you're interested in the pastor that Kanye has been working with, some of these last Sunday services, he's popped up more. It's this guy, Adam Tyson. And there's an article detailing a bit more about who he is when he and Kanye started talking. I think it was mid-May that they first started working together. And that he's been more and more of an influence on Kanye and even doing Bible studies with Kanye like once a week. He's flown out to Wyoming to do a Bible study with Kanye. So I think that does it for the rundown. Just a reminder that we have this Kanye West podcast, if you didn't know that existed, where we have done a line-by-line lyrical analysis of every song in Kanye's discography that's not Watch the Throne. That's the only album. Watch the Throne and Cruel Summer are the only albums we haven't gotten to. So everything in the main discography, we have a line-by-line lyrical analysis. If you want to know the narrative, the themes, what's happening on the song, all of that's there. And if you just want to easily support me, I write all these articles on Forbes, mostly about Kanye and hip-hop, sometimes movies, and every click gets me paid. And then if you're liking the content on here, the easiest way to help us is just to like and subscribe. And I guess YouTubers tell people to turn on notifications. I don't know if that does anything. I don't like saying it. I'm never going to say it again. But liking and subscribing and commenting, all of those things factor into the money that we make. So much appreciated if you do. And if you have any requests for content, let me know. And we'll talk soon. Stay wavy, keep it loopy. Cheers.